Okay, welcome, Rice. So when I lived in China, no matter which city I was in, something was always being built with cranes everywhere, new roads, and subway lines expanding month by month. After a while, I started to wonder, is this what it actually looks like when a country pulls nearly 800 million people out of poverty in a single generation? So I'd already visited China before moving there, so I wasn't expecting it to feel completely unfamiliar. I knew the country was developing quickly, but living there long term felt different than visiting. I lived in China for about 4 years, so I had the opportunity to travel to many cities, not just major cities like Shanghai and Beijing, also the smaller cities. And what surprised me most was the speed and scale of construction, with subway systems expanding fast, high speed rail connecting cities, new highways everywhere, large apartment complexes being built quickly, cranes visible in almost every city, and construction noise, dust, and constant activity everywhere. This was not occasional construction. It felt constant. It felt normal. It felt like the whole country was building at once. This wasn't just growth. It felt like growth at warp speed. So seeing construction everywhere made me start wondering, how did China go from very poor in the 1970s to the second largest economy in the world today? There are many reasons, like reforms, manufacturing, and trade. But one thing you can actually see is infrastructure, with roads, railways, subways, airports, and housing, all connected to factories, ports, and cities. And it was happening everywhere, in every city, at a pace that seemed unstoppable. So infrastructure matters because a modern economy needs movement and power. People need to get to jobs, goods need to move efficiently, factories need electricity, and cities need transit to function. You can't build a modern economy if people, goods, and energy can't move. In many countries, big projects take years of debate, but in China, I watch whole metro systems, highways, and rail lines expand fast. Seeing all this made me realize just how much infrastructure shapes a country. But China didn't exactly always look like this. So, China in the late 1970s was still mostly rural, with small, underdeveloped cities, and poor transportation and a weak industrial base, and energy and utilities were underdeveloped. So, life was very different in China, with limited mobility and fewer jobs outside farming, and cities could not expand efficiently, with factories, schools, and housing all constrained. So, economic reforms alone wouldn't have been enough. China needed a physical foundation for modern growth. So Deng Xiaoping's opening up reforms in the late 1970s did trigger economic change, but reforms were paired with massive investment in infrastructure. This created the environment for factories, trade, and urbanization to take off. And that's what I started to see with my own eyes when I lived there. Cranes, new subway lines, high speed trains, entire districts rising from farmland. So one of my biggest complaints about living in China was the constant construction noise, not just in major cities. This was happening everywhere, in towns and smaller cities too. The speed and scale of construction in China is truly mind-blowing. You could walk down the street and see apartment blocks, metro stations, and roads all going up at once. In China, you can see high-speed trains streaking between cities, apartment blocks rising from empty lots, streets bustling with workers, cranes, and machinery, and metro stations in progress. Everywhere I went in China, cities seemed alive with construction. It was noisy, chaotic, and exciting all at once. It felt like the future was being constructed right in front of me every day. So, how was China able to build at this pace? What made it possible to construct so much so quickly? So in China, there's centralized decision making, which leads to construction projects being approved quickly. And there's no endless local vetoes or debates. And also, in China, long term planning generally guides decisions, with the government setting goals decades ahead. And prefabrication and standardized designs allow for multiple projects to happen at the same time. Also, in China, there's massive national investment with a high savings rate, which frees up funding for infrastructure. And there's government led spending on highways, metro systems, and high speed rail. And also, China has experienced rapid urbanization in the past 2 decades, with millions of people moving to cities, which freed up labor available for construction. So, this combination of a large workforce and industrial capacity has led to cranes, machines, and people everywhere, and also massive infrastructure projects like China's high-speed rail network, which went from almost zero in the early 2000s over 50,000 kilometers today. So China's high-speed rail network is now the world's largest and fastest network. China's system allowed projects on a scale most countries can't match. All this building wasn't just impressive, it changed millions of lives. And that's where the real impact shows. So in China, infrastructure unlocked massive opportunities, with factories being built, which led to millions of new jobs for people. Also, cities grew bigger than ever before, which led to booming economies and better housing. And the level of trade increased, with faster movement of goods. And also the level of education increased as well, with schools being easier to access for students. And also level of mobility in general increased, with people being able to live near jobs. And this led to a virtuous cycle, with better transport, which led to more jobs, which led to higher incomes, which led to more investment, which led to even better infrastructure. So when you build infrastructure at this scale, you make everything else possible to grow. So in China, nearly 800 million people have been lifted out of extreme poverty since the late 1970s. This accounts for most of the global reduction in extreme poverty. And this is one of the fastest large-scale economic transformations in human history. And living there as an American, seeing all this firsthand really changed the way I think about how countries grow. So back home in America, infrastructure projects drag on for years, with bridges collapsing and debates stalling funding. Even small projects take ages. But when I lived in China, I saw entire districts rise in months, with high-speed rail connecting provinces seemingly overnight. And I saw cities transforming constantly, visibly, and rapidly. Seeing all this firsthand challenged everything I thought I knew about how progress actually happens. And it makes you realize modern China isn't just headlines or politics, it's relentless construction, explosive growth, and transformation at a massive scale. And when I think back on my time there, what sticks with me most is that constant sense of building everywhere I looked. So from my time in China, constant cranes, dust, and construction always stuck with me. Over time, I realized it wasn't random. It was the deliberate building of a foundation for one of the fastest economic transformations in history. Relentless building didn't just help China catch up, it created momentum that still propels the country forward. In China, every train, road, and building contributes to growth. It made me think differently about how progress actually happens, not just through policy or headlines, but through people, labor, and infrastructure working together. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching this video. If you liked it, please don't forget to subscribe my channel. And also maybe leave a comment if you would. Have you noticed improvements in infrastructure leading to more economic development in your country? And thanks again for watching, and I'll see you everybody for next time.